Welcome, dear ones. If you have ever felt like your prayers were too small, too weak, or too unworthy for God to hear, this story is for you. On Mount Carmel, Elijah stood alone before a nation, before hundreds of prophets of Baal, and he prayed a prayer so simple, yet so certain, that fire fell from heaven. What made that prayer powerful was not who Elijah was, but what he believed. Today, we are asking the same question: does God still answer the cries of ordinary hearts? Stay with me as we step into Elijah's story and discover how faith, not status, opens the way for divine response.
Imagine this moment with me, as if you are there, on the ridge of Mount Carmel, while the late light softens the horizon and the crowd holds its breath. You can feel the ache of a nation that has forgotten where to turn. And perhaps you recognize the ache because your own prayers have felt like unanswered messages left on heaven's doorstep. And your own heart has wondered whether God still meets ordinary people in ordinary days. Elijah's story speaks into that question with a calm, steady certainty. Because what made his prayer so powerful was not status or spectacle, but trust shaped by surrender. A conviction that the living God still answers faith-filled hearts. If messages like this help you find hope, stay with me to the end and share this with someone who needs courage for the week ahead. Now let us enter the story that unfolds in 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 16 through 46, with context from chapters 17 and 19, so we can see not only the fire that fell, but also the rain that returned, and the God who met one weary servant with tenderness after the crowds went home. Israel was wavering, torn between loyalty to the Lord and the pull of Baal. And 1 Kings 18 verse 21 records Elijah asking the people how long they would hesitate between two opinions. It is a piercing question for any age, because our own lives can waver between the voice of faith and the noise of fear, between trusting God and chasing every new thing that promises quick relief. The prophets of Baal gathered by the hundreds, and from morning until midday they cried out for fire. They performed with all their might. Their efforts grew frantic. Their devotion grew louder. Yet there was only silence. Verses 26 to 29 describe a heartbreaking scene in which effort rose and hope sank, and the silence itself became a verdict. Many of us know that silence because we have hustled for worth in our careers and still gone to bed with a hollow place in the chest. We have scrolled through endless voices online and ended the night more anxious than we began. We have tried to hold a family together while invisible pressures tugged at every seam. The text does not mock their pain. It exposes the emptiness of self-powered religion. And then it turns us toward Elijah, who stepped forward almost alone. Verse 30 says, "He called the people near and repaired the altar of the Lord that had been torn down." And this detail matters because the altar already existed, but lay neglected and broken. Elijah gathered 12 stones, one for each tribe. A living reminder that identity is covenant before it is achievement. That the people belonged to God before they performed for God. He arranged the wood, prepared the offering, dug a trench, and then told the people to pour water on the sacrifice, not once, but again and again, until the trench overflowed, as recorded in verses 33 through 35. Nothing about this was designed to help God. It was designed to remove every human explanation, so that when the answer came, only God could receive the credit. Then Elijah prayed, and the prayer was not theatrical. It was simple and direct. Verses 36 and 37 show him asking that the Lord would be known as the true God, that the people would see this was God's work, and that hearts would turn back. He did not ask for personal vindication or applause. He asked for revelation and restoration. The answer was immediate. Verse 38 says that fire fell from heaven and consumed the offering, the wood, the stones, the dust, and even the water in the trench. The people fell on their faces and acknowledged the Lord, as verse 39 records. And for a moment the mountain became a sanctuary, where the fog of confusion lifted and faith became clear. Pause and notice why the prayer carried such power. It aligned with God's heart to draw people home. It was rooted in obedience to God's word. It was offered from a place of surrender, where human cleverness had no room to boast. It was spoken by a servant who believed that God is faithful. This was the turning point of the narrative, but the story was not finished, and your story is not finished either. If this is stirring something in you, share it with a friend who needs a reminder that hope is not gone. After the fire, Elijah told Ahab that the sound of heavy rain was on the way. Verse 41 hints at promise. But promise is not yet fulfillment. Elijah climbed to the summit and bowed with his face to the ground, and he told his servant to look toward the sea. The servant returned and said, "There was nothing." Elijah said, "Go again." He said it a second time, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, and still nothing. On the seventh time, verse 44 says, the servant saw a small cloud rising from the sea, as small as a man's hand. The sky grew dark, the wind rose, and rain poured over a land that had forgotten what rain felt like. This is persistence in prayer, and it is as vital to the story as the fire, because the fire turned the people's hearts and the rain healed the land. James 5 verse 17 reminds us that Elijah was a human being with a nature like ours, which is to say he was not a legend made of marble. He was a real person who knew hunger and fear and weariness. In chapters 17 and 19 we see him fed by ravens, sheltered by a widow, and later running for his life before God met him in a gentle whisper. That is good news for all of us who pray with shaking hands, who believe and still say, "Help my unbelief," who have seen God move once and now must wait for the next cloud to rise. Now bring this home to your life, because the mountain is not only in Israel, it is wherever a man or woman stands between doubt and decision, between exhaustion and surrender. If you struggle to believe that God still answers personal prayers, Elijah's story says that God hears. If you feel spiritually unworthy, Elijah's story says that God does not move because of who we are, but because of what we trust. If you compare yourself to biblical figures and conclude that God moved for them but not for you, Elijah's story says he was human like you and me, and the same God who answered him is present now. Do you feel worn down by a workplace that seems to reward everything except integrity? Do you feel bruised by family dynamics, stretched thin by stress? Do you feel the quiet pressure to curate a perfect image online while your soul is tired? Certainty is not pretending to be unshakable. It is choosing to anchor your heart in the character of God. Elijah rebuilt the altar before he prayed, and that invites us to rebuild what neglect has broken. For some, that means returning to daily prayer in a simple way. For others, it means forgiving a wound that has become a wall. For others, it means confessing cynicism and asking for a fresh heart. None of those acts earn God's presence. They simply make room for it. Do not miss how Elijah's prayer aimed at the people's restoration more than his own reputation. He asked that hearts would turn back to God. So ask that for your home, your friendships, your team at work, your church, your town. Ask for a turning of hearts, and then keep watch like the servant on the ridge, going again and again, even when the horizon looks unchanged. The small cloud often rises after many quiet returns to the same place of trust. And when it appears, it begins small. You may notice a softened conversation where there used to be sharpness. You may notice a moment of calm where there used to be panic. You may notice a new willingness to pray where there used to be distance. Do not despise small beginnings. The cloud that begins like a hand can become a sky that breaks open with rain. For those exploring faith for the first time, hear this with tenderness. You do not need to master a spiritual vocabulary. You do not need to clean yourself up before you come. God meets honest hearts. Begin by saying what is true. God, I want to know you. I want to rebuild what I have neglected. Show me the next faithful step. Pick up the Gospel of Luke or the Gospel of John and read a few lines a day. Ask questions and keep going. For those who once walked closely with God and now feel far away, the altar may be thrown down, but it is not beyond repair. 1 Kings 18 shows that what is broken can be rebuilt stone by stone. Return with the simplest prayer you can offer. Lord, turn my heart back. Then sit in quiet with Him. For those carrying fracture inside a family or a team, let forgiveness be part of the rebuilding, not as a denial of pain, but as a choice to release vengeance and invite healing. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is opening space for God to write a new page. And for those who have fought long battles with anxiety or discouragement, take courage from the fact that Elijah's courage did not erase his fatigue. God did not scold him for that. God met him with food, rest, and a gentle voice. So be kind to your limits. Eat well, sleep, walk outside, ask for help. Know that none of those needs make you less spiritual. They make you human, and God delights to meet humans where they actually are. As we close, let your own prayer mirror Elijah's posture. Not long or complicated, but centered in trust. God, make yourself known in my life and in my community. Turn our hearts back to you. Let your answer be whatever brings people home to you. Help me persist like Elijah until a tiny cloud may rise. If this message is helping you breathe a little deeper, share it with a friend who needs a fresh start this week. If you want more scriptures-centered encouragement, consider subscribing so we can keep walking together. Now receive a blessing for the road ahead. May the Lord give you clarity where you feel torn, courage where you feel small, and a settled certainty that He hears you. May you rebuild what has been neglected and see the fire of renewed love and the rain of restoration. May your home, your work, and your inner life be marked by steady hope, gentle strength, and a faith that trusts God more than outcomes. I am praying that your next 7 looks like the servant's 7th glance, the one where the cloud finally appears. Like, comment, and subscribe to help this message reach others who are waiting for hope to break through. And share your story in the comments so we can pray with you. And as always, peace, love, light, and unity.
Thank you for spending these moments with me today. I hope this story stirred something meaningful in your spirit. A reminder that even in times of worry, fear, or doubt, you are never alone. If this video brought you comfort or inspiration, I invite you to subscribe and stay connected. And if someone you love could use a little hope or joy today, feel free to share it with them. Until next time, may your path be guided by peace, love, light, and unity.